Hey everyone, Christen here, and we are going to be going through your introduction to sketching for design media, and hopefully this will help you with your first exercise when you're going to site to do some on-site sketches. So first off, I'm going to introduce sketching and how that fits into the context of the design process, how it differentiates from drawing. Then we're going to chat for a little while about overcoming the fear of sketching and using sketching as a tool for different parts of the design process. Okay, so first of all, sketching is a little bit different from drawing, and it can be useful to be able to differentiate the two. Sketching typically happens earlier in the design process. They are usually faster to produce and are quantity focused. They also have different ends from drawing. So drawing is usually involves more polished visuals used to communicate an entire idea, whereas sketching is an earlier part of the process, looking to explore ideas or maybe communicate a smaller part of the project. So a bit about me and my sketching background. I have a degree in industrial design, so my introduction to sketching was more on the product design side of things, and there was also quite a bit of fine art training. But there's definitely a universal quality about sketching as part of the design process, so I'm definitely utilizing all of the training that I received and just kind of transferring it over to landscape architecture. So it's all very similar principles, and yeah, I'm still kind of refining and learning all of these techniques as I transition them into landscape architecture. Okay, so overcoming the fear of sketching. Everybody wants to be good at sketching. I can show you this really beautiful landscape section sketch, and of course most of us want to be able to sketch this well, but most of us are starting here. A lot of us, it's either our first time sketching or our first time sketching landscape, and of course that's perfectly fine. So it does take a lot of work to be able to produce sketches that have this really nice quality about them. But I think it's really important to recognize that sketching as part of design process is not about creating good drawings. It's about creating something that's useful to your process. So think about your drawings as being useful and not useful rather than good and bad. As well, your perception of drawings will change over time. And so this is a good example. I did this drawing early in my undergrad, and it's a continuous line blind contour drawing of a skeleton. And I remember completing it and thinking that it wasn't very good, that it just looked like a bunch of scribbles kind of on the page, and it didn't have a lot of differentiation to make it interesting. But now that I'm looking back on it, I can see a lot of really nice moments happening. There's some different line weights going on, and even this repetition of form is quite nice. So all that to say that 3 weeks or 3 months or 3 years from now, you might look back on your sketches and think that they were a lot worse or a lot better than you think they are today. So don't place too much weight onto, again, whether you think they're good or bad. Just kind of focus on if they're serving your design process or not. How we might produce better or more useful sketches could be through practice and repetition. Those are two different things. So for practicing, it's always good to try drawing new things, using new mediums and new techniques, experimenting with things that you aren't comfortable or familiar with, which I know is part of this design media course. And another technique would be to use repetition, so doing the same method over and over again until you get to a point where you think you are getting better at it. A really good example of this is I had a friend who was trying to apply for a design program, and for 9 months before the applications were due, he drew straight lines, circles, and hatches every single evening to try and get really good at the basics, so that when he was doing that practicing of different techniques and different mediums, he would have kind of a really good foundation for his sketching. The last thing I'll touch on the fear of drawing and sketching is preciousness. So while your drawings might be really beautiful and polished, your sketches should not have the same expectations placed on them. They should not end up being precious. They're useful to you, but they can easily be tossed away when they aren't working. So you shouldn't have kind of an emotional attachment to them when they're not useful to you. And nobody's being graded on them. So really, it's only in your self-interest to get good at it. You aren't going to be forced to show them to your peers or your instructors. So really, it's kind of up to you how much you want to push yourself on it. And I mean, you can see here, like in this set of ideations, no one of them is a really, quote unquote, good drawing. But when I start to do multiples and repetitions, that's when the ideas start flowing and it really becomes useful to my design process. So that's when I know that the sketching is working. Okay, so the next topic is going to be sketching as a tool. This will hopefully start to answer the question, why do we sketch in the first place? We can use sketching as a tool for data collection. This is a set of sketches that I did on site, where I had to take this playground element and then be able to produce technical drawings from it at home. So mostly I was looking to reproduce the form of the object and have measurements to go along with it to produce accurate drawings. And then you can see I shaded in some people to analyze a little bit how it was being used in sight, but that wasn't my primary concern. And I've got a few different angles here, a couple different techniques of how I'm actually representing the element, but all of that to give me measurements, basically. This is a really nice set of circulation diagrams, which were done pretty quickly on site. I borrowed these from a friend. I think she does a really good job of using color in a way that is really simple and quick. And so I thought it was a really good example of using different mediums to make these really quick sketches in a way that's visually very different from the techniques that I do. Sketching is also a tool for rapid communication. Because in the design world, words very often don't work. It's a lot of the times really tough to explain what it is you're thinking when we're in such a visual and physical type of work. So drawing can be used to bridge the gap between explaining an idea and really getting it across. And so these are a set of sketches that came out of a collaborative project with a peer last year, and they're all just from a big piece of craft paper that was sitting on my desk all semester. So we would kind of roll our wheelie chairs over and write down quotes. We would make mind maps, write lists and ideas, and then we would sketch stuff out for one another when we were thinking about stuff, and we would doodle while we were talking. So this really made sure that we were always on the same page with our ideas, that we were communicating effectively, and then it let us have all of our words and images in one place as well. And then lastly, sketching can be used as a tool for understanding and analyzing a site or an object. As you will very soon learn in your plant identification class, it's much easier to remember those 200 different species of plants if you draw them. So when you are drawing something, you're looking at it in a way that you would not be seeing it if you were not drawing. It allows you to understand a greater detail of the object and remember it better to recall those details later. So that can be really, really helpful for understanding objects. And then when you're doing the design process and you're kind of thinking about how you might want to create something, translating those details into two dimensions on the page through your ideation process is really helpful in translating those ideas down, exploring new ideas, working out details, things like that. So it's a really vital part of the design process internally as well. So just to recap really quickly, your perception of what is good will change over time, so you should focus on if your sketches are useful or not. Sketches should not be precious, and quantity, repetition, and experimentation are key. Sketching can be used as a tool for data collection, rapid communication, and understanding. So for the next video, I will be doing a little bit of a demo on different sketching methods and how you might go about sketching on your site for the first project. Thanks for listening.